What's up, everybody? It's the Benchwarmers, and we are back for episode 12 of our power ranking series for the NFL in the 2021 to 22 NFL season. Before we reveal to you what team we have ranked at the number 21 spot in the NFL, please like and subscribe. It would mean so much for us and hopefully to you, because that would allow us to get better content like this, and even better, we will have a player ranking for both the NBA and possibly even the NFL coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe, turn on notifications. You will get the updates and alerts for that. Now, I've done a bit too much rambling. Let us reveal to you what team we have at number 21. We have the Chicago Bears. Last year, the Chicago Bears had an 8-8 record, and they were actually in the playoffs. They were a 7 seed and lost to the Saints in a nationally televised Nickelodeon game, the wild card game. Honestly, they didn't do too well in that game. Mitchell Trubisky had a pretty bad game, except for that last second touchdown, which made the game a lot closer than it actually was. Throughout, the Bears offense was very stagnant, and that was sort of the theme throughout the year. The defense was really good against bad teams and was okay against good teams. They lost to the Packers both times they faced, and the Packers offense rolled against them. However, when they faced like worse teams, they were able to put the clamps on them. In fact, they were the 11th best defense in the league, but were also the 7th worst offense. And also, they had a really big mess of the QB1 situation, because they had both Mitchell Trubisky, who was their number 2 pick a few years ago, and Nick Foles, who was a Super Bowl winning quarterback who they had just recently acquired. So initially, they had Mitchell Trubisky, and he actually led them to a 2-0, 3-0 record. But then for one game, Nick Foles had to be substituted in and led them to a comeback victory. So he was there for a few games before Mitchell Trubisky ultimately took the mantle for the remaining half of the season, and eventually the playoff game, which they ended up losing. However, Mitchell Trubisky is not on the Bears anymore. They lost him in the offseason. However, in the offseason, they did acquire one more quarterback, which will complicate the quarterback situation a bit more. So we'll see how that pans out. However, last year was definitely a mess of a season for them.
Even though their past season was a bit of a mess, their draft was actually quite solid. So starting with their first pick, they had a pick at 20th overall, but they ended up trading it to the New York Giants, which we just covered a video on. You should definitely check that out. And they traded a first, a fourth, and a fifth to move up 9 spots. And I think this was an excellent pick because they were able to secure a quarterback that was arguably a top 3, maybe a top 5 for sure quarterback, and that was Justin Fields. I think he's already been extremely good in training camp, and he's already surpassed all expectations, and he's already improved his playing style, according to many reports. So I think he fits the Bears offense really well. He's a dual threat quarterback. He's a very talented player, and he's also a very good passer. So I think there's a lot of potential in the NFL. In the second round, they drafted Tevin Jenkins, an offensive tackle, and I think this was a steal because most big boards had him projected as a first-round talent, and he can also play the right and the left tackle, which is very, very good because the Bears lost on one of those tackle positions. So I think having that versatility is going to be very useful, and he's already NFL ready. But I guess one downside right now, which happened like much after the draft, was that in training camp he was injured, so he hasn't been playing that well, and as a result, they signed offensive tackle Jason Peters, who is 39 years old. So that may be a bad sign, but who knows? Tevin Jenkins still may play, but I think it's still a good pick regardless. And in the later rounds, the Bears had some other picks, like in the 5th and 6th and 7th. So they drafted some players that are actually pretty good, and they got good value, like wide receiver Daz Newsome and a cornerback whose name I don't remember. So I think overall, this draft was really solid for the Bears. They got 2 really good picks in the first 2 rounds, and it was probably the best draft out of all the teams that we've gone over so far. And I would give it an A grade.
Yeah, although they had a pretty good draft, their offseason wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't bad either. So they franchise tagged Allen Robinson, definitely something they needed to do because otherwise Allen Robinson definitely wanted out. They also signed Andy Dalton and Desmond Trufant to 1-year deals. These are both older players, so it makes sense to give them shorter contracts. And then they also added Damian Williams to add some depth behind David Montgomery. They also had some losses in the offseason, including offensive tackle Bobby Massey, who is definitely aging and much past his prime, as well as losing Roy Robertson Harris and Mitch Trubisky, as previously mentioned. So overall, I think they improved a bit during the offseason, but there were definitely teams that had more interesting and better off seasons than the Bears.
Yeah, I had the Bears overall ranked at as the number 20 team in the league, and just because I still like that defense a lot. That defense is very, very solid. I believe in that front seven, and I do like their secondary also. I think that they have the potential to be a top 5 defense of the league, and at least they should be in the top 10 to top 12. They were 11 last year. I project them to be probably in like the 9 to 10 range this year. And also, I really like Justin Fields. As you may or may not have seen from my reaction to the Niners selecting Trey Lance video that we have, I wanted the Niners to select Justin Fields. And Justin Fields slipping to 11 and to the Bears is actually really good for them. And I still think that he's a rookie. He will have some developmental struggles, especially because he's more of a running quarterback, and he needs to develop his arm a little bit more, even though he was really solid at Ohio State. And I think that the offense will be very mediocre. Allen Robinson, who knows how much he'll commit to the team. David Montgomery, can he have another 1,000 rush yard season? And can the offensive line be competent like they have in previous years this year? So I think the whole offense is a question mark, but their defense is really solid, which is why I think they will be able to take some games and have a very similar record to they did last year, probably a game or two worse, but I think that still puts them in that number 20 range.
I agree with you, Aki, and that's why I had the Bears at 21 for my power rankings, which is our consensus. So just to go over their offense, because I think it's already self-explanatory, their defense is one of the best in the league. I think their quarterback situation is kind of suspicious because Justin Fields is still a rookie, even though he's really good. So if he starts playing right away, I don't know if he'll play very well, even though he has a lot of potential. Their wide receivers are okay. It's probably below average because they do have Allen Robinson, who's a wide receiver 1 in many fantasy leagues, but they have Darnell Mooney and Marquise Goodwin right behind him. And I don't think they're very solid wide receiver 2s and 3s like many other teams have in the league. And other than those guys, they don't really have any noteworthy wide receivers. So that's kind of concerning when you don't have that kind of wide receiver depth. So I think the wide receiver situation is not too good. They have many tight ends, which doesn't make sense. They have Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham, among many more. Their offensive tackles are okay. They're not too bad, but still another question mark because they got a new rookie. The running back situation is surprisingly good. They have David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen, and Damian Williams. And they also have a rookie whose name I don't remember. And overall, I think their offense is still very questionable, especially at quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive line. And I think those are 3 very important pieces on the offense. So given that situation, I don't think I can have them ranked very high, and I don't think they'll make the playoffs, also because their division is quite tough.
Yeah, actually, the Bears a little bit lower than the others. I had them 23, 2 below average. This is really more a result of just me having certain other teams a little higher than the others rather than me having something against the Bears or anything. But I'll just basically add that their quarterback situation was a mess last year with 2 quarterbacks competing for that starting spot. And I think it still kind of will be this year with a rookie and a pretty below average quarterback. So this is kind of just a rebuilding year for them, at least on offense. So I think that's why they won't be too competitive. I think the offense is pretty much just as bad as the defense is good. And in my opinion, offense is just a bit more important right now in today's NFL. So that's why we have them a bit below average. But that wraps it up for this episode of the NFL Power Rankings. Let us know whether you agree or you have the Bears a little higher or lower than us. Remember to like if you liked the video. If you didn't, let us know why in the comments below, and we will change that in the future. Also, please subscribe because we are on the road to 100 subscribers, and we would greatly appreciate it if you did. But this is the Benchwarmers, and we're signing out. See ya.